Hello and welcome to the 10th episode of Season 3 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. This is the 74th episode of the show and the 51st regular episode. Today, Knikole Taylor will be joining me to talk about formative assessment tools. We'll be talking about Pear Deck, Nearpod, Jamboard, Padlet, Mentimeter, Formative, and Classkick. But we'll also do lots of laughing. Let's get to it.
Hey y'all, I'm Casey Bell from the Shake Up Learning Show, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Hello, welcome in. My name is Jake, and I'm here to talk to you about duct tape and educational technology and how the two fit together to form a goofy metaphor, but also an EdTech integration mindset that I believe can make the selection of tech tools for your learning environment a little bit less stressful. I'm also here to share with you a really fun interview with Knikole Taylor and our suggestions for some formative assessment tools. But first, here's a word from today's sponsor. Support for this episode comes from our friends at TextHelp. TextHelp software tool Equatio is helping to make math and STEM go digital. Simply type, handwrite, or dictate any expression, and Equatio will convert it to accurate, accessible math, which can be added into a Microsoft Word doc, PDF, or G Suite apps with a click. No coding or tricky and complicated math languages required. Equatio gives students new ways to engage and express math and is a great way for teachers to build assignments, assessments, and provide rich feedback. And because it's web-based, Equatio operates where you do, whether you're teaching in person, remotely, or a combination of the two. Ready to start engaging your students with math in a fully digital way? You can sign up for a free teacher account at text.help/Equatio-FFT, as in free for teachers. That's text.help/Equatio-FFT. Before we get to my chat with Knikole, I wanted to talk to you about knowing when it's time to fall out of love with one of your ideas. About a year ago, I had the idea of sending professional development certificates to listeners of this show. So I started creating secret words for each episode and developed a form where, if you typed in that word and selected that episode, a certificate of what I called listening, laughing, and learning would be generated and sent your way. I was pretty in love with the idea. And the early returns, people trying it out, were pretty good, so I stuck with it. But over the last few months, I've noticed that the form only gets a handful of responses for each episode. And a handful may be an exaggeration. Maybe like a Ninja Turtle hand, because they have like 3 fingers. Maybe a Ninja Turtle handful is how many responses it's been getting. So as teachers do with lessons that we thought would be great, but weren't, or tech tools that we thought would rock, but didn't, I'm saying goodbye to certificates. I can't even say goodbye to it because I can't even say the name. I'm saying goodbye to certificates of listening, laughing, and learning. Yep, that means no more awkward whispering about super secret codes. Some of you are probably bummed, and some of you are like, thank goodness he's not going to do that anymore. But this is what we do as teachers, right? We look at the data that we have and we decide, am I getting a good return on investment for this strategy? Is the time that I'm putting into this worth the effects that we're getting out of it? And if we're not, then we need to either tweak that strategy to make it work better or just simply fall out of love with it. And so I'm letting go of this one. You could still claim certificates for old episodes. Those codes will still work. It'll still generate the certificates and everything like that. But from here on out, there will no longer be certificates in the episodes or super secret codes or awkward whispering. I'm sorry if you'll miss that. If you need me to, I could just send you voicemails where I whisper super secret codes to you. Just send me your phone number. Well, that got creepy. Way to make it weird, Jake. So while I am letting go of certificates of listening, laughing, and learning, one thing that I'm not letting go of, despite how hard COVID-19 has tried to convince me to, is speaking events and professional development opportunities. My calendar doesn't look like it did a year ago, but I've still got some things that I'm excited about coming up. In January, we'll be launching the first of 2 7-week cohorts of my virtual course called Best Practices and Tools for Learning in All Settings. The 8th cohort starts in January, and the 9th cohort starts in March. You can get details at jakemiller.net/KSU course 2020. And I know it won't be 2020 anymore, but guys, I just need one thing to not have to do, so I'm going to go ahead and not change that URL, and you're going to have to deal with it, all right? Okay. On January 16th, I'll also be part of Improv EdCon, hosted by my buddies Elizabeth and Daryl from Flippin' Good Tech. Link to that is in the show notes. You can find out all about the fun that we'll have on that date. I'll be doing a virtual session for the ECOEA, that's East Central Ohio Education Association, on January 30th. In March, I'll be doing 2 sessions in the virtual Spring Q conference, which I'm so psyched for. In June, I'll be a part of WitCon and the Panhandle STEM conference. There are a few other events that the ink hasn't dried on yet, so I'll save them for the next episode. If you've got an event coming up, I would love to be a part of it. Please reach out. You can contact me at jakemillertech@gmail.com or head over to jakemiller.net/speaking. You can see some details there and also fill out a form there to get in touch with me. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me just grab my soapbox from over here. Yeah. There we go. That's perfect. Climb up on there. My very favorite speaker and author is Seth Godin. Santa, if you're listening, I really hope that you're bringing me Seth's new book. Anyhow, in a talk that he gave a decade ago, link is in the show notes, Seth said, not a lot of people are into pro bowling. The reason is, pro bowling is about being perfect. The best you could do is 300. There are no, I was blown away by that set in bowling comments. Teaching is so much different from bowling. Partially, because you can't drink a beer while teaching. Partially because you don't have to borrow special teaching shoes. But also partially because teaching is more than just aiming at the pins and avoiding the gutters. Teaching is about building rapport, assessing learning, making students feel valued, igniting passion for learning, delivering content, nurturing curiosity, and so much more. And don't get me started on 2020. Oh, 2020. 2020 took us from a bowling lane with 2 gutters and 10 pins to a bowling lane where the floor is lava. The pins are surrounded by a moat, and the gutters are filled with Zoom bombers and dropped internet connections and webcams that are turned off and kids wearing masks. You're not bowling anymore. You're extreme bowling. Your ugly bowling shoes have been replaced with cement shoes. Your bowling alley draft beer has been replaced with a glass full of your own tears. Oh, gosh. And the fun soundtrack in the bowling alley, it's been replaced with the glitchy robot voice that we get when the internet has a hiccup when one of our students finally speaks during a Zoom lesson. And you're like, come on, internet. And sometimes that Bon Jovi song that you were enjoying in the bowling alley is replaced by the painful silence of no one speaking in your Google Meet. So no, as Seth said, you'll never hear me say, I was blown away by the set in the bowling match. But you will hear me say, I was blown away by what teachers did in 2020. Because unlike bowling, the game that you're playing has changed. And you rose to the occasion. And every time you rolled a gutter ball, or barely eked out a pin or two, you got back up and rolled that 13-pound ball down the lane again. And you didn't score 300. You weren't perfect, but I was blown away by what you did, by what you've done, and by what you continue to do. Wait, I'm not done. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I think that someday, maybe not this school year, but someday, the bowling alley floor will not be lava anymore. There will not be a moat around the pins. We'll get our regular bowling shoes back, and they'll even be clean. And just imagine how many pins we'll be able to knock down then. Think about that. Think about how much you've grown as an educator and how much you'll be able to do when this year of extreme bowling is in our rearview mirrors. It'll be like bowling with the bumpers. Well, maybe not quite like that, but you're going to be amazing. You might just get a 300. But for now, I'm just proud of what we've all done. I was blown away by what teachers did in 2020.
Today's guest.
All right, today's guest is Knikole Taylor. Knikole serves as the Instructional Technology Coordinator for Life School. Through personalized support, Mrs. Taylor works with teachers and teacher leaders to craft professional goals to extend their scope of instruction and meet the needs of all learners. You could reach out to and connect with and follow Knikole on Twitter at Knikole, which is Knikole, or email her at info@NikoleTaylor.com or on her site, which is NikoleTaylor.com. That contact information, as always, is in the show notes, but not in the show notes. Actually, here in the podcast is Knikole. Welcome in, Knikole.
Whoop, whoop. Hey, Jake. Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's fun to sit and chat with you.
Yeah, we were just giggling about how we're gonna geek out about some educational technology and how our spouses think we're weirdos for wanting to do this, right?
Yeah, but that's what they signed up for, right?
Right.
Good, bad, and weird, everything in between.
No, when my wife met me 15 years ago or whatever it was, I was not talking about educational technology at all. We were not like at the bar like, have you ever heard of Flipgrid?
Nope, we weren't. I was a finance major when my husband.
Yeah, for real?
Yeah, when my husband met me, I was a finance major. I was working at the bank, and I thought I was going to just take the banking industry by storm. Got a job teaching 2 weeks before graduation, and that's all I've been doing.
He thought he was going to be a trophy husband, and he got an educator, huh?
I had something else for him.
You broke that news to him, and he's like, what?
Yep.
I thought you were going to work for Goldman Sachs or something and bring in all the money. No,
okay. I'm gonna give you a red pen and ask you to help me grade these papers. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, my wife has definitely helped with some papers over the years as well. So Knikole and I've been following you on Twitter for quite a while, Knikole, but I think where we really connected was this summer. You were running I don't know if running is the right word for it, but you organized kind of an online Flipgrid book club for your son during quarantine life to connect with other kids. So your son, Caden, and you were running it, and you just put out a post saying, hey, I'm looking for kids, like 10 to 12 years old or something like that to talk books. And I was thinking, like, all my son does is read books. Not all my son does, but he's like a book a day, and he needs somebody to talk to him about. So I was like, yes, we are in. And Cohen loved it. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Caden did too. That's the one thing that he said he missed was talking to friends. He has a twin sister, and they talk. I'm like, how do you guys have so much to talk about every day? But he was missing just connecting with people outside of the house. So he said, hey, do you think that we could maybe get some kids together and read a book? And I was like, yes, we can do that. That sounds like so much fun. So it was really cool to go through, because I went through to like make sure that it was kids, mama bear, making sure that no one that wasn't supposed to be in the space was in there. And so it was just really cool to see all the kids. We had kids from Australia. We had some kids from South America. And of course, all of my EdTech buddies. Lots of us were in there as well. And so our kids got to connect. It was really cool. I think they read Holes. I think that was the book they discussed, something like that. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, Cohen kept telling me about Stanley Yelnats. I've never read Holes before, so I was like, "Is his last name backwards of his first name?" And he's like, "Yep, Dad, that is." And but he really enjoyed the book. It was a fun experience. I laughed when it started because I was like, "This is a classic teacher move that their kid wants to connect with more kids," and you're like, "Let's make a book club."
And let's use one of the tools that I use at school.
We're going to use Flipgrid.
And he's a typical teacher's kid, because he was like, yes, Mom, that would be a great idea. And you're going to post questions for us? Yeah.
That's right up my son's alley as well. Our educators raise education nerds. I don't know what it is about it. It's the love for learning. And you know what, though? Truth be told, all kids, not just educator kids, would love an opportunity to read a good book and talk to other kids about that good book. So as much as I tease about you setting this up, like, I just about every 11-year-old would have loved that opportunity. Don't you think?
Yeah. And I think too, just like taking their lead, because I think it came off differently because Caden took the lead on it. He said, this is something I want to do. Which of course, as his teacher mama, I was like, ooh, that's a great idea. Let's do that. But I think that's a lesson to be learned also just in listening to kids, because he chose the book. He decided he wanted to connect. He could have just sat in the corner and read the book, because he does that often. But taking his lead. And so it turned into something really cool that he was all in because he led the way.
Yeah, and the kids will surprise you, right? Like you assume that's not something, like if you don't know the kids, you'd assume that's not something they'd be into. But you listen to them and you find out like, yeah, this really is what they want to do. Like my son, I made him, he had a day off of school yesterday, and my wife was saying, remember last year during the school closure when you made him some math problems to do, how excited he was about that? I was like, yeah, he's a nerd. He really was excited about those math problems. So she said, you should make him a set for tomorrow when he's off school. So I made him a set, and it was the first thing he did in the morning, like before he got on his screen to play screens. And this morning I was supposed to make him a second one, and I forgot to. And I realized I forgot to, and I messaged him and I said, sorry about the math problems. Do you wish I had left some more? And he said, yeah. So I texted him some, and he like sent me back answers immediately. Like they'll surprise you, right? You just got to listen to them.
And I'm a teacher's kid. My dad was a classroom teacher for 10 years before moving into administration. So as you're talking, I'm like, oh, that's the kind of stuff we used to do. And those memories, they stay with your kid forever. That's just like quality time and finding something that both of you are interested in and you can nerd out together. That reminds me so much of time with my dad around the table, throwing around vocabulary words, or he was a math teacher. And so we did a lot of math together. So
yeah. Nice. My mom was a teacher, and she just had me grade papers for her.
What did she
spent
teach?
A lot of time. I think at the time that I was in elementary school, she was probably like fifth grade. So I can remember being a fifth grader myself, and I was so excited that I was going to be able to, like, I was going to have all the answers. And then when I found out we had like different textbooks, I was like, "Wait, Mom, I thought this was going to help me." And she's like, "No, but you can grade my papers for me." And I'm like, "Great, okay, awesome," and I enjoyed it. I hope she looked at them afterwards.
Do you think that had any impact on you becoming a teacher?
I think I became a teacher because of my personality and the way I like to connect with people and support people. But I think it gave me a respect for educators that permitted me to go down that road. Right, it gave me such a profound respect for the profession itself. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I can remember watching my dad teach as a kindergartner. I'd ride the bus to his classroom and sit on a stool. He had a stool for me, and I got to catch like the last 20, 30 minutes of his last period class. I can vividly remember like seeing him dressed in a toga or preparing, like, turning his classroom into a cafe with menus. So I can think back to teachers that I had, watching my dad in kindergarten, having an amazing teacher in second grade. I knew when I left second grade that I wanted to teach. I just didn't major in it because I didn't expect to be able to eat and teach. So, my 18-year-old self, I didn't major in that. But when I think about why I became a teacher, it was because of my dad and a few teachers along the way. Like you said, they just did it right. And I wanted to emulate them. I respected their work. I love the way, and I can't even thinking about these teachers. Like I can't even think about anything they taught me. Not like, oh my God, I learned this great thing. I just remember how I felt in their presence and how I felt in their rooms. And I wanted to give that same thing to someone else. So
probably similar to how you felt watching your dad. You obviously as a kindergartner don't remember the content he was teaching, but you remember the way that felt, seeing him do that and seeing him be, like a passionate communicator and like, I don't want to say an entertainer, but a designer of experiences. It sounds like the way he was teaching.
You said it right. You must know my daddy. Yeah. He's an entertainer.
He sounds like it.
Oh my God. He's an entertainer. He retired, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and now he's subbing. He's like a full-time sub. And so he's actually, he's actually like subbing in my school system. He subs at Life School and they love him. I mean, because you get an educator, someone who has like almost 40 years of experience, who's there just because they love kids. He is an entertainer. And so that is something that I remember just watching him connect with students and listening to the giggles and seeing the the relationships that were formed. And I think that was like ground rule. Like he was my first coach. Like he was the first one that kind of coached me. And then when I became a teacher, he was like my first unofficial coach, coaching me and helping me with lesson plan and helping me with lesson plans and pretty much like scripting out what I was going to do and say with my kids every day for sure.
How fun is that? That's very cool. That's cool. What a cool connection that you guys had over that and still have over that. How cool him subbing in the same school system that you work in. Does he like call you and be like, the technology's not working in the room? And you're like, Dad.
It's so funny because my dad is not tech savvy.
Yeah.
He's not tech savvy. Like he has a hard time like when he needs to update his cell phone. Like that's always very comical or send a text message. So we don't really talk tech. We do talk teaching and learning and kids, but no, we can't have any tech conversations.
Because he's stressed out and you're like, I just can't even handle it, right?
No, I'm like, dude, no.
Got to get help from somebody else. Okay, well, we were going to play a game, Knikole, but I feel like we don't even need to play a game. Here we are just chatting it up, talking about all this stuff. And we were going to play 2 truths and 1 lie, but your 2 truths probably would have been my dad is a retired teacher who now subs in the school district I work in, and and what was the other one? My first major was finance, right? And I would have not guessed either of those. I would have thought they were both lies, and I would have lost the game. So let's just chalk it up that I've lost the game. Okay.
Wah, 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 wah.
Wah, wah, wah. And we'll jump right into some ed tech. Are you good with that?
Sounds good to me.
It sounds good. Okay, good. People are like shutting the podcast off. They're like, Jake, I only turn in for the game. I'm done. But you just people, you just got to pretend that we just played the game because we essentially just did. We did. It just wasn't in that format. So today I've got an educational duct tape question for you, Knikole. And for those people listening that might be new to the show, educational duct tape is my goofy metaphor, but it's an ed tech integration mindset that says that the educational technologies are at their best when they're not the goal of the lesson or the focus of what we're trying to do, but they're a tool supporting teacher goals or teacher needs or helping solve teacher problems. So we always start from what the teacher is trying to do or achieve or fix or repair or get to, and then we say what technologies can support them with that. So that's educational duct tape. So my question for you is, how can I formatively assess my students? Now, I say the phrase formatively assess, and Google Docs tells me I'm spelling the word formatively wrong. So if anybody out there wants to tell me what I'm supposed to say instead of formatively assess, how can I don't know what word goes in there, but how can I use formative assessment with my students? I don't know what the right word is in there. But Knikole, what recommendations do you have?
Oh, and I love the edu duct tape, holding it together, right? Because that's what technology should do. It should like bridge things together. There are a couple tools that I'm loving right now, and formative assessments. That is just a quick check-in, seeing what kids are able to remember from the things that you have taught them. Because I mean, that's what we do as teachers, is we want to make sure that kids can actually remember the things that we've taught them. So things like Pear Deck, I love Pear Deck because it doesn't feel like an assessment. And so just taking your slides and taking your presentation and then pulling in some of those Pear Deck templates and allowing kids to write on them or type in answers. That's just a quick check. So teach a little and then an interactive slide, teach a little. I also love Nearpod because it does similar, where you can kind of teach a little and then do a little. And then things are like a little bit more informative, like a Jamboard.
Oh, yeah.
And so that could even be where kids don't put their name on it. And you can simply see by how they're responding, how that lesson is going for sure. And I use these same checks even in PD to see like, hey, this is what I'm talking about. Like, what do you guys think? Like, where are we? Let's stop and let's discuss it. And so that kind of lets me know how I need to pivot and change too.
So when you do that, would you do like a jam and you just like use the one, I don't know if they call them slides or cards or whatever it's called, but one frame. Yeah, you're right. Use like one frame and say like, everybody put out a Post-it note. Is that what you do?
You can do, I've done it a couple of ways. You could do where you tell them to put a sticky note to summarize or ask them a question and put a sticky note and then move to another frame for another question. I probably would move to another frame because that gets really jumbled in my brain. It's jumbled enough up here with everything I have going on. So I usually will say like question 2 or activity 2, let's go to the next frame. And then I also think that that helps to model when you're working with teachers and supporting teachers, how they can also use that with their students as well.
Yeah. So one thing that was what kind of came in my mind as you were talking about that, have you ever had them strategically use the colors of the Post-it notes?
Yes. So I have actually had them to
Great
use
minds.
the red, yellow, green. Yeah. Yeah. Something
Okay,
that
so does red means I'm not confident in this. Green
I
means
need
I'm
help.
very confident.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Nice,
mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
So they would be like maybe giving an answer, but also expressing at the same time that they're having some difficulty with it. Is that how you do it?
Right. So I've done a Jamboard before where it's like, give me, choose a sticky note and you can make it red, yellow, green. Yellow is like, I'm not too sure. Green is like,
Hmm.
this is great. Ask me about it. I can share. And then red is like, this is a little fuzzy. Can you clear this up for me? Also.
Yeah. The only thing, and maybe this is a good thing, and maybe this is a bad thing in my feelings about Jamboard, is that you can't tell who did what. Right. You can see it as it's happening. You can see who's
Mm-hmm,
doing
mm-hmm,
what text or what post note. But after the fact, you're like, I don't know who did what. Right.
mm-hmm,
So it's just if you're the teacher using it, you've got to either have the kids include their name on their post-it note, and even
mm-hmm,
then, you don't know for sure that it was that kid that typed it. So this is not a hugely beneficial data-based strategy here,
mm-mm.
but it is like it's fun, it's engaging, and it can give you a good quick snapshot and a fun activity, right?
Yeah, it's a good check-in, and that's a good point. What I notice even with my kids is when their teacher gives them one, she locks it at a certain time. So they have a
Mm,
certain amount of time. But also before you use this with students, I would definitely consider what kind of conversations you've had around digital citizenship,
mm.
what kind of conversations you had around like the digital footprint, because those conversations should be ongoing throughout the school year, and they'll definitely help you in spaces like that for sure.
Right. Understanding like, yes, it's
Mm-hmm,
possible for you to type something inappropriate here. Let's talk about that. Right.
mm-hmm,
Or
mm-hmm,
yes, it's possible for you to claim to be somebody different here. Let's talk about why we don't do that, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I think that's important. That's a good point to bring up, because when we talk digital citizenship, we often talk about what not to do, and we rarely talk about what we should do, right? Or what the kids should do. And we often also put up so many walls and barriers that we don't give the kids chances to take any risks, to make any mistakes even,
yeah.
right? Like, so this is an important way to scaffold in a little bit more behavior where there's potential for some things to be
And we
done
want
wrong.
them, to make mistakes. I was
Yeah.
talking to a kid the other day, like, make the mistake. Like, this is when you need to make the mistake. We learn through mistakes. So,
Mhm.
Jamboard is a great place to have those conversations and to talk about things that are posted. And I kind of like that. I know different teachers may feel differently about that. I kind of like the fact that like I can't see who has posted what, because I feel like that makes it a little easier for kids to like really do a brain dump and really tell you what they know and what they don't know,
Mhm.
knowing that their name isn't tied to it. But again, like you can just go and change those share settings just to ensure that no one goes on there and they erase anything or move anything around also.
Yeah, that's a good point, that there is power in not knowing who the kids are, both for the activity that you're doing and for your vision of the class. And so that you don't bring any preconceived notions or biases into your judgment of the answers that you're seeing there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kids, like if you're like, look at this one, and you look at this fantastic answer right here on the jam, the kid
Mm-hmm.
knows that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
as a teacher, this is something I talk about with educational duct tape a lot, is you just have to make that decision coming in. Is this a situation where you need to know
Mm-hmm.
if Nicole knows this content, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to know, does Nicole in particular know the content, then maybe a Jamboard is not the tool to use for it. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get a good snapshot of the class or create a discussion around the content, then it's a great tool for it.
Yeah, if you're just looking for trends, because you'll see trends as kids post, and so that'll let you know where you need to go. And I depending on your time, I mean, depending on how much time that your lesson is, you can squeeze in more than one activity. And so it may
Yep.
be that you start with the Jamboard and then you teach more based on that information, and then you move to something more formal like Pear Deck or Nearpod where you have student names. Yeah, I would definitely suggest mixing it up because you may actually need that data.
Yeah. And one thing I really love in, especially in remote or hybrid learning, when students are juggling a lot of technology platforms and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
different links, is I love to embed things into Pear Deck or Nearpod, whichever tool
Mm-hmm.
you're using. and a Jamboard would embed wonderfully in those. I've never done it, but I'm sure it would work great in there, so that then you could have kind of the anonymous piece on slide 1, maybe, of the Pear Deck. And then on slide 2, you could start actually getting some student-specific data so that you've got your piece of formative assessment that's your snapshot, and then you've got your student-specific snapshot coming up on those other slides. Does that make sense?
It does. And as you were talking too, as you're talking, I'm like, bing, 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 going, everything's going off up here. That's something that the teachers that I support, that's one of our struggles right now, because we have some kids in class and then we have some kids at home, and then we have some teachers, just depending on numbers, some teachers are teaching both groups of these students at the same time. And so using a tool like Nearpod or Pear Deck allows you to engage both audiences at the same time, because they're all seeing the same slides, they're all seeing the same activities, and it allows the kids at home to feel connected to the classroom, because they can have like conversations and they can interact with their peers. They can digitally, think, pair, share, right there on the slide deck or within Pear Deck or within Nearpod. And also the kids who are there with you don't feel like you're kind of abandoning them to take care of the kids online. So that's a win-win.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because the first time this school year that I used Jamboard, I had been aware of it since it first came out. I've used it in professional developments and things like that. But the first time this school year that I used it was the first day that we were hybrid. And in my school district, I have some kids in room with me, and I have some kids synchronously same time at home on Zoom, and I'm supposed to teach them all at the same time. And normally we have discussions in the chat, and we weren't supposed to have our roomies, we call them, the kids in the room with us. We weren't supposed to have our roomies on Zoom yet, because we wanted to make sure that the network can handle it. So I had my Zoomies at home on Zoom and my roomies in the classroom not on Zoom. And I'm like, how do I have a discussion between these kids? They can't hear or see each other or type to each other. And so I used Jamboard, and I said, everybody put out a Post-it note and type a response in there. So you're right. A tool like Jamboard, a tool like Pear Deck, a tool like Nearpod, all of these different tools can give you formative assessment information, but also just be pretty good tools for connection too, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Pear Deck even has some of those templates that are like SEL check-ins. They already have some of those too built in. And I don't work for Pear Deck. I just like Pear Deck. I like Nearpod. I like all these tools that we're talking about. I don't get a check for either one of them unless they're listening to this podcast, right? And they want to mail us a check. I mean, we'll take it, but we don't get one.
All right, Nearpod and Pear Deck, if you want to mail Knikole a check, let me know. I will give you your address. I do demand a finder's fee because you've heard her on this podcast, so I will take 15% whatever you're saying to her. And you know what? Google, if you want to send her a check for Rep and Jamboard too, just reach on out.
We'll take it.
Right. Us poor educators, you are no longer that finance major, right?
No, sir.
Money for these people. Your husband's in the background like, yes, and some money for me too, right?
He's like, yeah, we'll take it.
And unfortunately, you're just going to spend it all on books for the kids anyhow.
You know me so well. I'll squeeze in a few books for myself, a couple, but you know me so well.
Once again, support for today's episode comes from our friends at TextHelp. Time for a test? No problem. TextHelp's digital math tool Equatio brings math out of the traditional pen and paper assessment bubble and into the world of digital STEM collaboration and feedback. Seamlessly integrating with Google Forms, teachers and students can use Equatio to create and respond to digital math quizzes in a snap. With multiple means of input, including typing, handwriting, or dictating, creating equations and graphs in forms has never been easier. Equatio's Google Form integration is an ideal environment for students to complete problems by themselves digitally, fostering a deeper understanding of and engagement with math concepts. Plus, with Google Forms' auto-grading quiz feature, you could use Equatio to help close the feedback loop and spend time on what really matters, giving students the individualized support they need on their journey to STEM success. Start quizzing with your free teacher account at text.help/equatio-FFT. Okay, any other favorite formative assessment tools in your repertoire and your tool belt?
Those are some of my faves. I still love Padlet. I know some people have abandoned Padlet. They're like, that's old school. Ain't no school like old school. I still love Padlet because you can do so many different things. Like it can be a back channel. Maybe if you don't want the kids using the chat on Google Meet or the Zoom, you can set up a back channel. You can set up columns and do like a KWL or notice and note. There's just so many different things that you can do with Padlet. And again, you can like direct kids to leave their name. They can add links. They can add images. I worked with someone who was so anti Padlet, but I still use Padlet for a lot. Padlet, I love Mentimeter.
Yep.
Also, just to gather that data. That of course, like you don't have student names per se, but I also like Menti just to do a check because I think I like Menti too because there's so many different ways that you can use Mentimeter. But those are two of my faves as well.
Yeah, I actually love both of those tools too. Like if I was making my long list of formative assessment tools, I think they would both show up on there. I'm also a big Padlet fan. Padlet kind of got, I don't want to say thrown under the bus, but became a little bit less popular a couple of years ago when they changed their pricing model, and which stinks. But you know they got to pay the bills somehow, right? And it just stinks when we don't like the way they charge, but I got to do it. And when I chose to do that Jamboard thing I was talking about earlier, where I needed a chat tool and I used Jamboard, my first thought was, you know, it'd be perfect for this, Padlet. And you know why I didn't use Padlet? I was out of free walls to use, and I couldn't.
You just delete one.
Archive. No, I couldn't find one. I was like, I'm still using that one. We're gonna go back to that one next week. I'm not ready to delete this one. I can't use Padlet, right? I probably should have just paid for Padlet at that point, right? And given them their money. But I was like, I'll use Jamboard. And it was a good opportunity to try out Jamboard too. But you're right. The power of Padlet is exactly what you said first, which was you could do so many different things with it, right?
Yep.
The kids
it's very versatile.
Pictures. Oh, super versatile. It can do like there's almost no limitation to what it can do, right? Or it can't, you could do, the kids can do pictures, they can do videos, they could do audio, they could do text, they could do like just about anything. And like you said, there's all these different formats in there. You could have them in columns, you could have them in, like all kinds of different stuff too. So Padlet's a great one. Mentimeter is a tool that I also use occasionally. My favorite feature in Mentimeter is the word cloud generator.
Yeah.
Because you can ask everybody a question and they type in a word and then it creates a word cloud, which is a really cool feature. The problem that I always run into with word cloud is also, with Mentimeter is also the pricing situation, because I think you have 2 slides available in the free version or 2 activities available in the free version within each. So like you'd have to start a separate presentation, but you're right. It's a fantastic tool. So it's definitely worth considering. One other one that I've got to throw in that I'm not currently using, but I really feel like I need to start using more, or giving more respect to, is Formative. Have you messed with Formative before?
Not in a while. I haven't used it in a while, but it is a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah. Well, the huge power in Formative. So we were talking about how, like with some of the ideas you've shared about here, like Jamboard, for example, you don't get a lot of great data on the back end. You get a great experience, you get a great snapshot, but you're not ending up knowing like, so-and-so knows this standard, but not that standard. That's not going to happen in that situation. And same with Pear Deck and Nearpod. Fantastic tools. Good data for each lesson individually, but you're not getting like this aggregated data that you're going to make decisions based off of. Formative does that. So if you're looking for a really good data tool for formative assessment, Formative's your one you want to go with. You have to be a paying user of Formative to get data that goes over the course of a whole school year. But the level of data you get, like, it's worth the money you put into it if that's something you need. And Formative is kind of like halfway between a tool like Quizzes maybe and a tool like Pear Deck. It's not quite to Pear Deck's like lesson delivery level, but it has like problems where kids can show their work on it, right? And actually draw it just like they can in Pear Deck. So it's pretty similar, except it's got this just like really rockin' standards-based data map for each kid that's really, really cool. So I think that's one's worth considering. And then another one that I need to try, have not tried, but it's like on my to-do list, is Classkick.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I have to keep on talking, Jake, you've got to try it out. So one of these days I'm going to have to roll it out there. Classkick is pretty similar to Formative. It's in the same vein as Pear Deck and Nearpod, but the one feature they have, actually the 2 big things in there for me, are kids can respond with audio, which is really nice. Like most of the other tools don't enable that. And then the big one for me is like, imagine most of the listeners, Pear Deck, for example. And in Pear Deck, you could send out a slide where kids can draw. In Classkick, you could do that as well. But the difference is so in Pear Deck, I can see what my kids are drawing when they're doing it. I can send them feedback if I'm in the paid version of Pear Deck right then. Right. But in Classkick, I can actually go into, I'm saying I can like I've ever done it before, but the teacher can. The teacher can actually go into their slide and collaborate with them in their slide. So that's kind of the really big feature in Classkick that makes me want to try it out. And then the student can ask for help and the teacher can go in to help them, or a student can go in to help them, a classmate, and they can go in anonymously. So I could say like, I'm stuck on number 5, and like I click a button and you could be like, I know number 5. I'm going to hop in there and help them. They wouldn't know who you were. You would just be in there giving them feedback. The teacher would know who both of those students involved were, but the two students wouldn't have any idea, and they're just supporting each other in that learning experience. That's, I think, a cool reason to pick Classkick, because it adds in that collaboration feature, which I think is just really rad.
Oh, that may be really cool for teachers like you who have kids in class and at home. I like that. I'm going to check that one out. I keep hearing about that. It's just, time. But I'm going to add that on my list of maybe things to look at this weekend. But I love that.
I like how you stuck a maybe in there, Nicole.
Time. That's just the one thing I don't have a lot of. But I do love the idea.
My list of things to maybe look at this weekend.
Friend. I like the idea of kids being able to jump in and help each other. That's something I haven't seen on any other platform. So that's different.
Yeah, that's the thing that really sets it apart. And then it's got that, like, it's similar to like a Pear Deck and a Nearpod, where you can get that data, but it doesn't really aggregate across a whole bunch of stuff in the way Formative does. I think the biggest message I have to give to the educators listening is we just named something like 9 tools, and you should not be using all 9.
Please don't.
Right? Please don't. Please maybe just use one. Like, and don't use a second one until you feel comfortable with that first one, and only use that second one if there's something that first one's not giving you that you need. Right.
That's a good point, because I think too, I know there's so many tools out there. I think back to March when everyone was like, hey, all these tools, you can use them free. And it's so easy to become so overwhelmed. But if Jamboard is getting you what you need and it's giving you the data that you need and your kids can use it and they can collaborate, keep rocking with Jamboard. If you're doing that with any of these other tools that were listed, you bring a good point. Like, only change if there's something else that you need from another tool, because you don't have to do all the things. You don't have to.
Yeah, and that's what I keep preaching on Educational Duct Tape is if it's not, you don't have to use the technology, just use the technology. You have to focus on what your problems are, what your goals are, what your needs are. And like you're saying, if Jamboard or whatever the tool is meeting all of the goals that you have in this situation, then don't add a different one, right? Don't drive yourself crazy just for that. We all know that you still have something else on your to-do list, right? You don't have to add a new formative assessment tool because there's some other problem you're trying to solve. Like, don't create your own, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Focus on the other things that work.
Right.
It doesn't mean close your ears to all of it. It just means if you don't need it, if it doesn't meet a goal for you.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, what's your problem? If it doesn't solve the problem, then find the tool that does solve the problem. I remember when I started with tech, I was like, all the things. And then you get on a platform and you put your kids on the platform, and then you realize, oh, this doesn't work for this, for this piece. So definitely use it to meet the needs of your kids.
Yeah. And that's the best way to find out which ones work for you, by the way, is to try them out, right? And you're modeling to the kids that you're trying and you're reflecting and you're learning. And if it works well, you're going to come back to it. If you see potential, but it didn't work well, you're going to come back to it and tweak it. If you see that it just was not what you needed, you're going to abandon it. And it's good role modeling for the kids to see.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Don't even cross that bridge unless there's a reason to do it.
Yep, for sure.
You've really tied a bow on this episode with this talk, Nicole. You took us on a good road there.
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed our conversation. This has been really good.
Yeah, I agree. So the only thing left to have happen here is for those checks to come rolling in from Formative, Classkick, Google, Jamboard, Padlet, Pear Deck. And I'm going to get a finder's fee on all of these. We are going to be set, Nicole. And this episode is going to air before the holidays, so our families are going to get a lot of good books in their stockings.
Something tells me that if they give us anything, our families are going to get stickers. They'll get,
but our kids are going to love them.
Yep, for sure.
I can see my daughter. She'll be like, "Is this a Pear Deck sticker? I love Perry." They'll be happy.
Merry Christmas. If that's I'll put it in their stocking. Merry Christmas, kids.
I get 10% of the stickers, though, Nicole.
Gladly.
Okay. All right. Thanks for being here, Nicole. This was a blast.
Thank you.
So psyched about Nicole's visit on the show. It was such a fun interview. We did that interview on a weekday evening. I was particularly exhausted from that school day, and I have to be honest, I was hoping Nicole was going to message me and ask to postpone the interview because I was just not feeling up to it. But I got to tell you, as soon as we started talking, the smiles were on our faces. We were laughing. We were having fun. We were talking about educational technology, and I'm so glad that she was able to be on the show. And I hope you guys will go check out her website at Knikole. That's Knikole Taylor.com. So a little review of what we talked about today. We talked about using Pear Deck for formative assessment. Great tool because, as Nicole said, it doesn't feel like an assessment. It feels like a little bit more than an assessment, right? But we can get some good assessment out of it. Not the greatest data tool, as we talked about, but a really good way of assessing within a lesson and building in engaging opportunities. And as we said, kind of putting a whole lesson into one place and packaging it all together for the students. We also talked about how Nearpod kind of works the same as that. The two tools have differences. Pear Deck is really good at some things, and Nearpod's really good at other things. But both of them are fantastic tools you can use in the same situations. We also talked about some really cool ideas with Jamboard. Nicole talked about putting one question on every frame, which is kind of like a slide, but in Jamboard they're called frames, and having kids put out Post-it notes with their answers. We also talked about using different Post-it note colors to communicate how well the kids understood, like red for I don't get it, yellow for I think I got it, but I'm not so sure, and green for not only do I get it, but I'm ready to share. And then we also talked about digital citizenship using Jamboard, but I want to throw in here, I thought about putting this in the middle of the episode, but I'll just throw it in here. Since the interview with Nicole, it came out that you actually can access the revision history on Jamboard. At this current time, as I'm recording this, there's not like a button anywhere, but Alice Keeler posted that she discovered that there's a keyboard shortcut that brings it up, and I believe it is Shift Control Alt H. Shift Control Alt H brings up the revision history for Google Jamboard. And I'll put the link to her article with a video on it in the show notes. So Nicole and I talked about how you wouldn't be able to see what kids posted what. Turns out you can. I haven't explored it a whole lot. I'm sure it's improving. I'm sure that's probably the reason it's not in the menu yet, is maybe it's not quite ready for prime time, but it is there with that shortcut for you to check out. We also talked about Padlet. The power that Nicole suggested there was that you could do so many things with it. Video, audio, pictures, links, files from your drive, images, drawings, like anything can go into a Padlet. The downside there, of course, is the pricing, but it is a tool that if you can make that work and if you're going to use it regularly, it is worth it. We also talked about Mentimeter, which is kind of more of a polling tool, but has some really great formative assessment things in there and is a really great presenting tool and polling tool as well. We both loved the word cloud option in there. We talked about Formative, which is kind of similar to a tool like Pear Deck or Nearpod, not as much for interactive things, more for formative assessing. So it'd be fantastic if you're looking for formative assessment. Where it's really powerful is in gathering that masteries, that standard-based data. So if you're really looking for some data, I recommend checking out Formative. Their website, I believe, is at goformative.com. And the final one we talked about was Classkick, and two of the powers I mentioned about Classkick, which is similar to Formative and Pear Deck and Nearpod, but two of the powers that I mentioned were the ability for students to respond with audio, the ability for teachers to jump into a student's slide and support them, and the ability for students to anonymously jump into each other's slides when they're invited in by the student asking for help and help each other out without knowing who's who, except the teacher knows who's who. So lots of stuff there. As always, I'll put links and some shorthand notes in the show notes that you guys can get to, which is in the file in whatever podcast listening feed you're listening to right now, as well as on my website. And the link to that is also in the show notes. Last but certainly not least, time for my favorite part of the show, which is the celebration of the adjacent possible. Adjacent possible is the idea that whatever you do, whatever you try, whoever you talk to, whoever you listen to, wherever you go, opens you up to new adjacent possibilities. And the connections and discussions between me and you and each other, between duct tapers, between educators, those open up our adjacent possibilities. So in the show, we have 3 different ways to kind of connect with this adjacent possible, and you have 3 different ways to share and learn with each other and then have that shared on the podcast. One is through social media with the hashtag EDU duct tape. My preference is Twitter, but I also am active on Instagram and Facebook as well and trying to get better at using those too. So share with the hashtag EDU duct tape or edu duct tape on any of those social media platforms, and that'll give you a chance to connect with each other, but also your opportunity to be shared on the show. The second way to do that is by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, and the third and final way, which I want to showcase today, is by heading over to the Educational Duct Tape Flipgrid grid, as our friend Kathy Hulbert did. And you can record a message just like Kathy did by heading over to flipgrid.com/edu duct tape, selecting the appropriate topic and recording a message. You can do it with the camera on or off. I'll pull the audio out and share it on the show. You can also go to the link in the show notes or click on the link to Kathy's video and respond back to Kathy if you have something to say back to what she shared. So let's check out Kathy's response here. Take it away, Kathy.
Hey Jake, Kathy here from Colorado. I teach high school science in North Glen, and I have stumbled across something called Actively Learn that has really helped me out during this remote learning time, especially with my special ed kids. It's got some really cool features. It'll read to the kids out loud, those that need it. It has a translation option. It allows for you to make annotations, and the kids can make annotations. You can upload your own documents, your own PDFs, and you can customize it to you. You can write multiple choice questions, give polls. But the thing that I like the best about it, and the reason why it's so helpful now during this remote learning with my special ed students, is it has a feature called Extra Help. And on Extra Help, what it'll do is it will eliminate one of the multiple choice options, and it will also make it so that I can provide them with an extra hint, where I often just go back and recopy like the sentence that came from the text that they really need to focus on, that they need to answer the questions. Think my other duct tapers would love to know about it, and so I hope you share. Bye.
Oh, Kathy, I love that there are kid noises in the background while you're recording that video. That is just like 2020. Everything we do, every call, every lesson, there are kid noises in the background. But I also love, Kathy, that you shared a tool that I have never used. I've been aware of Actively Learn. It's one of those tools that are on that list that Nicole mentioned today, right? Those things that I might maybe look at this weekend or whatever she said in the episode. But that's been on my list for a while, and Kathy, thanks to you, I'm now moving it up a little higher on that list. So that does it for today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please tell a friend, tell a colleague that's more of an acquaintance than a friend, or share about it with the hashtag EDUDuctTape on social media. And if you really liked it, please consider rating the show on Apple Podcasts. Check the show notes for details about signing up for my newsletter, joining the Duct Tapers Facebook group, inquiring about having me work with you or your team of educators, getting some podcast stickers, and more. As always, as a parent, I'm grateful for the work you do, and as an educator, I'm proud of your dedication to lifelong learning.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. please consider rating and reviewing the show on your favorite podcast app. #EduDuctTape.